Yanis, let me just interject there. Okay, you in effect maybe reconvene the original spirit of Keynes, but basically saying, okay, we reconvene a Keynesian-like recreation of Bretton Woods with the bank core and his ability, his desire to make sure that surpluses and deficits didn't build up to the point that they built up today. But that begs the question as, would you allow the Chinese to continue to build up their manufacturing capability, their technology, at the expense of, let's say, American manufacturing, which is declining? Where would the shift stop? The Chinese, I don't think, can stop their momentum. They would have a very difficult time of it. Americans seem to be complacent about, or at least not howling too much about the fact that they're losing their jobs on a continuous basis. If I'm a planner, an American planner,
I think Americans are howling a lot.
do I really care if I can in effect build a virtual world that countries really don't matter so much anymore, and then I can basically build a virtual world and a subsidiary world not necessarily geographically contained, and that I can basically manage that kind of a process without worrying about national borders? Your comment on that, Yanis?
My answer will be modular. Let me say that firstly, personally, I disdain national borders. I think they are a scar on the planet's face. But besides that, where I think we will agree is that at the same time, I think that national governments have a duty to their people. And in the United States, as well as in other countries, our governments have dropped the ball there. They have neglected their duty to the common folk, and they have been utterly and cynically been hijacked by by what I call, not so much by the military-industrial complex anymore, but by the bankrupted banks after the collapse of 2008. So the answer is surely not to blockade ourselves behind national borders, and to imagine that the growth and development of China is a threat to the growth and development of American manufacturing. At the moment, this is what is happening. At the moment, when Apple or Ford or General Motors builds a factory in China, or transfers technology there, or subcontracts jobs there, there is a loss here in the United States. But this is because we live in a world whose blueprint is quite devilish. There would be, you ask your question by saying, well, what if we were to convene a World Development Organization modeled along the lines of the International Clearing Union that Keynes had suggested in the Bretton Woods conference, but which was rejected by the American side? Well, if we manage to do that, and I think we can, I think that technically speaking, not politically, but technically it's not difficult to do, that would mean that if China maintained a surplus vis-à-vis the United States while it was growing, its economy would be penalized through this International Clearing Union. And similarly, countries with a deficit would be penalized. So there would be automatic stabilizers that would then create the circumstances so that the manufacturing development or development manufacturing capacities in China would not clash with the interests of American manufacturing, and they could become symbiotic, and they could have synergies, and the creation of a new manufacturing technology in China would be rather synergetic with better technologies here in the United States, especially as technology is moving ahead to a new phase with 3D printing, which for me, what I share with the Georgists is a disdain for oligopoly and monopoly power. This, and for corporate power, for that matter, this augurs quite well because it promises to effectively render corporate monopoly power obsolete. But It is not going to happen surreptitiously, it's not going to happen automatically, and it will not contribute to a better life for the average citizen both in the United States and in China until and unless there is macroeconomic global coordination. By that I don't mean a global government. I don't mean more authoritarianism. I don't mean greater losses of national sovereignty. All I'm talking about is a way of combining the great importance of trade with the great importance of keeping capital flows under control. Because there is a very great error that most libertarians make to assume that free trade also means free capital movement, and that it is the same thing to ship components from or physical products from China to America as it is to press a button in the New York, in some New York bank and transfer billions of dollars to a Chinese bank. These are not the same things. Free trade or trade is a contributor to common prosperity. Free capital flows is a greater source, a huge source of destabilization.
We're going to now take a short break, and we'll pick up the discussion shortly.